Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Grace and I'm one of the organizers. I'm actually on the social media team. So you guys should follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Hydra Hacks.
As a Hydra Hack, I'm on high school. Cool. And I guess we can just get in. Grace, did you want to go first or should I?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. So my first question is for all of you. What are your biggest suggestions or tips for hackers interested in landing computer science internships? I know you guys all have internships at some awesome companies or positions. So maybe resume building or technical skills, interview tips, things like that.
I could go for it. I think the main thing I'd say is building projects. I guess many students would, don't really build projects early on, and that's okay. I just think that, even if you show something small, like these projects do not have to be big whatsoever. Like even just like a one HTML, and CSS page, just showing that you're passionate about computer science. Even just showing, I don't know, let's say you like basketball, like a game with basketball, it just shows how you can connect tech and your passion. And also if, you're not very technically great, like I'm not a huge coder. I'm very like involved at school. So I guess if that's the only thing, being involved in like your computer science council or like women empowerment in STEM, stuff like that.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of that as well, you guys being part of Hydra Hacks is a really great opportunity because y'all are going to create a project and you can even put that on your resume as well. Because actually my very first hackathon that I did, I put that project on my resume, and my first like internship, they actually delved into that project that I worked on and they asked me a lot of questions and stuff, and I actually got the internship because of that. So hackathons are a really great place to start as well. So you guys are making the right first step. I would say kind of like breaking it down into several different aspects. I know you asked about resume tips. I'm a foodie, so I always think like the resume is like the appetizer, but like your LinkedIn, your GitHub, those are like the meals and the dessert that kind of like make the whole package come together. So like in your resume, you really need to like pitch yourself, kind of talk about like your main objective, explain all the technical projects you worked on, like leadership efforts that you might have. I've been really passionate about like promoting women in tech. And I think you really need to showcase how you stand out in comparison to other people and like really highlight your strengths. But on your LinkedIn, that's where you can like delve deep into like kind of a lot of the internship experiences, explain that more in depth. And you can include several different endorsements, do different posts, and they'll be able to see for, I guess, like how much effort you are and who you are as a person. And I would also say like in GitHub too, like kind of putting your projects, they can see your code like firsthand. So like they understand like kind of like your technical capabilities as well. So I guess really take advantage of a lot of those sources. In addition to like, I would say like if you, let's say you want to work at SpaceX or you want to work at a certain company, definitely reach out to those recruiters on LinkedIn as well. I love to just kind of put in a mini, I'm really interested in your company. Let me know if there might be like certain positions available, because you're vouching for yourself. And if you're able to vouch for yourself and if you're able to bring that confidence, that's what they're looking for. So I think that's also a really great aspect as well. So I know I kind of dove into different topics, but I think those are like the main areas. And if you have any specific questions, we can delve into either like resume or interviews or certain areas.
I definitely agree with what everything Medha said. I think she summed it up very nicely, but something that I want to emphasize is like, make sure you know what your like niche is. Like for me, I was also very passionate about women in tech. So like everything on your resume was, or on my resume was consistent with like showing how I used tech to pursue my passion. If you have like multiple passions, kind of try to choose one that might be unique to you, because if you put everything on your resume, it'll look a little messy. Also, if you don't have a finished project, I suggest that you still put it on your resume, because I had like, if you never had an internship or a project before, I put an unfinished project and they still asked me about it in my interview. And I just did my best to talk about it, but they knew it wasn't finished, but I still got the internship anyway. So just put whatever you have, just try your best.
Also,
Yeah.
just to add to that as well, I know like this whole internship process too, it can be a lot. Like you apply to so many companies, you get so many rejections, but don't lose hope through it, because eventually like the right company will come. And like don't lose your self-confidence in the process. Like if anything, it should be like the extra fuel for you to try harder. So
All right, cool. So yeah, speaking about projects, yeah, hackathons are a great way for you guys to get started in creating projects. So yeah, what is the biggest challenge you faced when working on a project, and how did you overcome it?
I could go for it. I guess for me, I did the summer before starting university, I did a few hackathons. And obviously me and the people I was working with, they didn't have too much technical background. But one of my friends wasn't really putting in any work, and approaching that kind of thing where it's your friend but you also want to get the project done and you also don't want to make it awkward. I think the main thing, I mean, after many trial and errors of like ways of solving that issue, I just communicate with her. And I think right now as a PM and I'm getting more experience in being a good PM, I think I learned that communication is key. And what I was doing before was just like, passive things to try to get her to work on the project. But I think just being straight up and communicating what you want, why you want it, like, just being straight up, gonna make everything easier at the end of the day.
For me, the challenge on a project is probably motivation. I think that's why I have a bunch of unfinished projects, but I don't know. I think for the projects that I was able to finish, I was most passionate about. Like I kept reminding myself why I started it in the first place. And I feel like for those unfinished projects, I was just starting on it just to start it, and that doesn't work for projects. So for personal projects, make sure you know why you're doing this, and make sure you like understand like how you're gonna do it too, because if you don't know like where you're going but you want to do it, then it's kind of hard to get started on it. But for projects that you have to get working on, you just do it. But like me, it's fine if it's not finished.
yeah, I guess like my first, I think my hardest or most challenging project was like the very first hackathon that I was part of. I was a freshman in college, didn't really have much of like a database background, and I was like trying to like teach myself MongoDB, and it was interesting to say the least. But even though it was like an unfinished project and I was working with a team, I kind of faced similar issues like Camilla, like kind of communicating with the front end team about, hey, like how far are you with this area? And if there isn't good communication, then like you're kind of screwed, like the project won't come together. So communicating within a team is really important, and like I think I learned that through that first hackathon. Even though that was an unfinished bed, I wasn't necessarily like motivated, but I really liked the idea behind it. So that project was actually, it's called Closet. It was mostly used to like customize clothing for customers, and they can like choose and select which clothing that they wanted to wear for a particular day. And it was more of like an app style, but I was like, what if we could implement this in a virtual reality scenario? So actually I kind of came full circle, because this past semester I took a virtual reality class, and so we were able to choose like our senior project that we wanted to do for it. And so I kind of brought that hackathon project that I did freshman year to life in a VR scenario. So understanding the motivation and kind of pivoting to another avenue to kind of create this project and make it come to life is also another thing to kind of keep into account and consideration. But yeah.
That sounds so cool. And I love how you talked about like how you wanted to make an app and then you transferred it to virtual reality. That's so cool. And that concept is really cool as well. And I know you all talked a lot about teamwork and working on projects with other people. And we had another, what advice do you have for fostering a positive collaborative environment with with teammates or coworkers in the tech industry?
I can start off. I think the most important thing is to ensure everyone feels belonged and make sure like their ideas and their thought process are being valued. I know it's like, oh yeah, it's like obvious, but sometimes like there's situations where other people might not feel as if their work or their value is being recognized, and ensuring that it is. So I was president of Society of Women Engineers at my university, and especially trying to expand our officer team to create more opportunities. There were times where a lot of officers, they felt as if they were not being recognized, or if they had concerns. I think honestly just listening to them is a really big gift, value, and asset that you can bring to them, and also kind of helping them or guiding them to ways that they could grow and improve, and providing like even critique as well. So I guess like ensuring that people feel belonged and they're able to grow is like very important. And like making sure that they know that their value and what they're putting in is also equally as valued. And it kind of goes back to communicating, like making sure that your thought process or your perspective of them is also conveyed to them is something that's really important. And putting yourself in their shoes, understanding what they're going through is also something which will really help you understand how to to make sure that everyone feels valued, because you kind of put yourself in their shoes and see how would they feel type of perspective.
I totally agree with everything you said, and I think to add to that, one thing I really like about the tech industry is, generally speaking, compared to other fields, tech is very like collaborative. We're all working together for a goal that we're all aiming for. And I think it's important to remember that it's not, one developer against another. It's not like the PM versus developer. It's never like that. It should always be you're building the thing together. There's going to be a bug a developer's going to struggle with. The other people could definitely tackle it on. So I think that's important to remember. And I think generally speaking, most tech companies really do a good job at that. I think it's important to remember that.
For me, I think it helps to dig into their personal life, or not personal life, but like kind of go on a tangent and like talk about how they're doing or like what they did over the weekend, instead of just like I've seen in group work, like if we're just talking about the project continuously, it kind of gets boring and we don't really have a connection. But if we go like off topic and we're just talking about ourselves or like what we've experienced or any stories, I find that we have a stronger bond and it's easier and more fun to work with each other. But yeah, and then when you're actually in the group project and you guys are working on whatever work you're doing, I think it's good to also have good communication. And it's fine to like ask people for help. You don't have to feel like you had to carry the whole team, because there's many times where I felt like I needed to take up work that other people wasn't. But yeah, just setting your boundaries, but also being friendly and trying to create a bond with your team, that helps a lot.
All right, yeah, I love that. Like, kind of like trying to make friends with your coworkers and like bonding more. I also wanted to add that if you guys have any questions, please like send them to me. And the next question is, have you dealt with imposter syndrome or negative impacts on your mental health from your studies or job? And how do you balance school/work life and your personal life?
I can start with that. I did feel imposter syndrome in the beginning of my internship this summer. So I started in mid-May. And like everyone's so amazing. They're super smart. And I felt like, what the heck am I doing here? Because I don't even know where to start. But then someone told me that like the way she conquered imposter syndrome was like, you're an intern, they don't really expect that much from you, so you can ask all the questions you want. Like you can be like, you don't have to be afraid of looking dumb because that's kind of what they expect, you know? So that kind of helped me bother my mentor a lot. So now I ask him like questions almost every hour. And I still have imposter syndrome, but it helps me be more comfortable with it. My mental health is, I guess it's fine right now, but in my studies, I guess my mental health was impacted like when I was in college, just because I was putting too much time in school and not really like my social life. But having a good, like I had a roommate and she was a good friend and she was kind of almost my therapist because I would like talk to her a little bit too much. But having that friend that can listen and like talk to you and give you advice is really helpful. So make sure you like are aware of what you're balancing in your life. So make sure you're having a social life, but also doing well in your studies or your job.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great response. I do think, like, especially in college, I have faced imposter syndrome. I mean, it's still like a reoccurring issue that we are trying to like ensure that there's a lot more women in our classes. And yes, it is improving. I will say it is improving. But also, like, there's some classes though, like where I'm like one out of like four girls in a classroom of like 30 guys. And like, I mean, it's sometimes like hard because like you don't see yourself in a lot of those classes. And one thing which I realized like after working with like a lot of my college friends on certain problems or projects, is like we think differently. And sometimes they just want to like head to the code straight, and I'm more of like, let me like kind of think about the big picture, whiteboard out the situation, and then kind of like delve into the problem. And sometimes just the way that they approach things, I'm like, shoot, like should I be approaching it that way? Because like I feel as if everyone is, and like does that make me dumb for like doing it this way, or am I even qualified enough? Yeah, you do face those situations, but one thing that my mentor told me, she was just like, every person is different. And she actually used this analogy. So um like let's say like, like she observed in her son's like elementary school basketball like team, like all the guys, they would like dribble, play basketball, versus all the girls create like an orderly line, and like they're playing like all around the world and just like throwing it in the hoop. And they're like, yeah, like we think different, we need to like accept that we do, but the thing that's important is we need to collaborate and we need to bring those ideas together. And so I guess that's how I'm slowly kind of coming in the college setting, being people, and that's what we need to create diverse projects, diverse team, all of that. So I guess that's that experience in college. It has been like very different. So at Intel, like I was in a global team. So like there were people in like Switzerland, in Greece, in like so many different parts of the world. And I'm just like here in like Oregon. And I was like, okay, like how am I going to accommodate or like ask questions or get myself out there? And it was initially very hard in the beginning, but I had a really supportive manager, which kind of helped me push out of that shell a little bit. So a support system. And right now, currently at SpaceX, I'm the only girl on my team filled with white men. Like, it's been a very interesting experience so far, and there are moments where I'm in meetings, I'm like, shoot, I really need to like explain or like voice out my opinion, because like I feel as if sometimes guys might be like over talking me even though I did XYZ thing. So it's been something that I'm still trying to get over, at least in like the SpaceX world. But I mean, I think I'm powering through, and knowing your self-worth and providing opportunities for you to kind of like take self-care moments, like going to the gym or like talking to your friends and like kind of just ranting out your issues to them. Those are all great ways to kind of relieve all of that and find that like hobby or passion that you have besides schoolwork, because that will kind of bring you some like self-care as well that you need to kind of like be on the right path. But yeah, that's like my long-winded answer about imposter syndrome.
On my end, I think, the first time I felt imposter syndrome was definitely in university. But then I realized, compared to other fields in tech, having the best grades in computer science will not guarantee you that job. Like, it's a lot of it is like your projects, how involved you are. I think realizing that definitely calmed me down a little bit. I'm like, I might not be the best, but I'm trying my best. I'm putting my efforts. I'm understanding it. Yeah, so I think that's on my university end. In terms of internships, my last internship was my first ever internship, and I'm on the same team right now in cybersecurity. And let me tell you, cybersecurity is very like male dominated. There's also not much diversity, like in terms of like race as well, or sexuality. It is not too much diversity. And I think that was definitely tough for me at first. But it's important to realize like the metrics of the impacts your projects have had. At the end of the day, that's what's going to be compared, right? And last summer, my internship, my project, I had to like build a machine learning model, and back then I literally only took intro to computer science. I hadn't even taken data structures and algorithm or anything. And I was able to figure that out. So I think after having done that, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take on anything like that. I feel like that experience showed me that at the end of the day, like, you're gonna be able to figure it out. You might not have that knowledge right now, but when you're working at a job, it's a learning process where you will be learning how to tackle certain things that you probably didn't learn at school. And it's not like there's other people that have more resources. Like, everyone's given the same amount of resources. You have people to help you out, mentors. Like this internship, I think since it's my second one, there's definitely a lot more expectations set on me. And my project is definitely a lot bigger and impactful, but I'm getting so much more support. I'm grateful. I'm able to even talk to my manager's manager, which, isn't always feasible, but he's been teaching me a lot. So I think just having a great support network with people who believe in you and are not trying to put you down will definitely help out.
Yeah, I loved all of your answers, and I loved how you guys were so like open about your experiences and things like that. That was really helpful, especially for me. And I related especially to what Camilla said about only knowing like intro to computer science and being thrown into something that was completely different, but still being able to overcome that. That was super cool. So I wanted to ask A's question. They asked, how do we develop awareness of what's right and what we accept? For example, I received feedback that I'm a star performer, but I have to keep in mind that my team doesn't work the way that I do. I guess, how do I follow up and keep people accountable? Or we can like think about this question and then move it to the end if that's okay.
This is actually a really good question. I do think especially like kind of asking follow-up questions from that is a really great way to approach it, because like, I mean, it's great that he is like, whoever gave you this feedback said like, this is one thing that you're good at, but especially like when they said like my team doesn't work the way that I do, kind of like ask, okay, like this is a great observation, like thanks for pointing that out, but what are some steps that you think I can take? Like kind of throw the question back at them is a really great way to go about it, because I do think like having one-on-ones with people and asking for feedback is definitely like important for you to grow. And so kind of like asking follow-up questions, be like, okay, like you did point out this one thing. What are steps like I should take to kind of, be better at this one con that you like mentioned is always good. So I think if you like ask like questions to like figure out like steps that you can take, I think that's like the smartest move that you could do.
Um, I'll just reiterate the same thing. I think asking questions back, especially as a PM, that's I think that's always the case. So I wouldn't be able to give a better answer than that.
Okay. Serena, if you had anything to add, feel free to do that.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Okay, that's totally fine. We can move on to another question though. And thank you, A, for your question. I'm sorry, I don't know your full name. But our next question is, how did you get your start in tech? Are there any specific individuals, events, projects, etc., that encouraged you or sparked your interest? And how would you encourage hackers to overcome adversity like you talked about, and get more involved in the industry besides just hackathons?
Yeah, I guess I can start. So I got my first, I was thinking I was gonna go pre-med route. I like loved biology and everything. And then both of my parents are like in IT too. So they were just like, okay, like please do something different from us, like go into medicine. And then I took my very first computer science class in high school and I loved it. I took exploring computer science and I really loved like the problem solving aspect of it, and I love math, and just like kind of thinking through problems was something which I really enjoyed. However, though, like in that class, I was like one out of like 3 girls in a classroom of 20 people, which was like, oh my God, like holy cow, there's not that many women in this like field. But my computer science teacher was a woman. Her name was Miss Kavanaugh. She was amazing. And she really like provided us opportunities to kind of understand or see like women in tech from like a woman's perspective. So my high school was right across from Intel. So we would go to like different like conferences that they would host for like women in tech. And hearing one of the VPs say, really resonated with me. She said that it doesn't matter about like what age or creed you are, but you can create and you can empower people however you want, and you have that power to do that. And I was like a 15-year-old. I was like, oh my God, like this is so inspirational. Like this VP is like, I have the power to like make like, provide that opportunities for other people. And I like started talking to a lot of like my college friends who weren't in like CS classes. I was like, yo, like why, like have you thought about taking this class or that class? And they're just like, oh, like I thought mostly guys just do it. Like I don't know if I have the skill sets too. And so I was part of Girl Scouts in high school. And for my Gold Award project, I thought, okay, might as well kind of put that into reality. So I created this week-long camp called Empower. Yes, there's an acronym to it. It stands for Engineering, Math, Programming, Women Rule, and the O is like parenthesis. But it was like my very first initiative I guess I took. It was a week-long camp, and there were like around 15 or 16 like middle school, elementary school students. I devised this whole curriculum for them. But really seeing the impact that they had through it, they're like, whoa, like I didn't realize cybersecurity was this cool, or wow, I didn't know like solar cars, like creating solar cars could be this interesting. But like seeing that like excitement within them like was something that really like inspired me to kind of continue on and like empowering women in tech. And that's how I met my mentor. So my mentor was one of the guest speakers at that event, because she So I reached out to her through another connection of mine at Intel, and she was at that time the chief of staff to the CTO at McAfee, and we reconnected after, and I still go back to her for like advice, suggestion, tips on like career goals or advice that like I should follow type of thing. And we're still in like contact till this day, which is amazing. But from there, I kind of helped Girl Scouts with a lot of their initiatives in high school. And in college, I really wanted to continue this path. So I got involved in Society of Women Engineers, and I was also part of like the hackathon space. So I was a attendee of Hack UTD. I organized Hack UTD, but then I also saw that same gap. Like a lot of women or girls in CS and a lot of my classes just didn't show up to Hack UTD. And I was like, why didn't you show up? And they were like, I thought this was mostly for men. The same issue again. And I was like, no, like everyone can like be a part of this. And I attended HackCon, which is like a conference for hackathon organizers to kind of find advice or like inspiration for their hackathons while they kind of plan out their hackathons. And I met a lot of Tech Together organizers, and they inspired me to create the very first Women Uniting Hackathon in Texas, which I called We Hack. And I think that was a really great experience overall because it showed a lot of girls in my college and a lot of girls in the Texas area that they are able to hack. And actually one of the girls after We Hack, she kind of followed up with us and she was like, I did attend a lot more hackathons and I won a lot more projects and awards. And now I'm like interning at this fintech company because like a lot of my hackathon projects that I like did was what helped me get that job. And you guys were like, the very first steps for me to even know that I can do it or I'm capable of doing it. So kind of hearing those stories back is like something that really inspires me and kind of fuels me to form that difference that I want to see. And my mentor, who I kind of said, she also loves math too. And there is this analogy that she always says, think about the slope equation, like y is equal to mx plus b. So b is kind of like who you are, your demographics, your GPA, all of that. But m is like that hard work, that passion, that effort. And if you have a really high slope, like you're going to soar in life. So like as long as you know you're worth it and you're like confident in what you do, like you're gonna kill it in life. So that's just my story about me being part of tech.
I doubt mine is going to be as interesting as hers, but my start in tech was a little bit like ambiguous and kind of spontaneous because in high school I didn't know what I wanted to major in college. But then senior year I took AP Comp Sci as one of my like requirements, and then I liked it a lot, and I felt like CS is something I could go into if I was aimless, because I could technically kind of go into any field I want or like any niche I want. Like if I still want to do bio, I can do biotech or something like that. So I was like, okay, I'll stick to CS and see if I like it and if I want to keep going with it. So I've been in college for 2 years now and I like it a lot, actually. I don't have a specific reason of why I like it. I just think it's fun. And I have taken a couple of bio classes because it's also a major requirement. And I'm like, this is not for me anymore. So like, I really want to stick to tech just because of my experiences with it. And the more you know what is in CS for you, the more you're going to like it, or the more you're going to know if you don't like it. So I guess for my first project, it was also a hackathon. That one was also pretty cool because I won like best beginner, and that kind of just fueled me into continuing CS, because I was like, at the beginning I couldn't do the hackathon because I was like, I have no idea how to code anything at all. I was looking up tutorials back to back for like 24 hours and it was honestly very tiring. But just know that a hackathon is not an embodiment of what your job is going to be in the future. It's very fast paced and it's meant to be a competition, but that it's not like that in your career. But after my first hackathon, I felt very like refreshed, and especially since it was a all-female hackathon, I felt more encouraged to pursue CS. So yeah, that's why I'm here now.
So on my end, so I'm not gonna go into many details, but in the province I'm from, our education system's different. So like we do high school and then like 2 years of college, kind of like pre-university, and then we go into university for like 3 years. So I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school, but I went to the general science in my pre-university, and in those years I was doing a lot of women empowerment or just minority empowerment in general in science. And then when I had to apply for university, I was debating between biomedical or computer science. And then my parents were like, no, you're not doing biomedical. So I was like, okay, guess I'm doing computer science then. I took a minor in biotech just to keep that going. And I'm glad I didn't do more of that, because I will say in university, biology is very different. Like Serena said, I did not really enjoy it. So I'm glad I didn't do that. And yeah, I was, actually Serena and we both started a hackathon for women, and that was definitely one of the things that got me going. And in terms of projects, the summer before going into university, I guess it was kind of my imposter syndrome kicking in, but I was like, I need to learn how to code now, because I bet everyone in there is going to know how to code already. So me and a couple of friends, we did 2 hackathons, and they're both like things we're passionate about. One of them was a Black Lives Matter hackathon that we ended up winning actually, and the other one was COVID related, which we also ended up winning. And it was also these were both my first hackathons, and I learned a lot about building a project. I definitely enjoyed the tech aspect, but I realized that, especially in my internship, because I was an Explorer intern, where you could like do SWE NPM, I realized that, as much as I love coding, I think I could give my skills align more with the role of a PM, and I could contribute more to a team like that. So yeah, I think kind of similar to what everyone was saying, just I guess the women in tech empowerment is what got us going. But yeah, that's on my end.
Okay, those are awesome stories. I loved hearing about how specifically just being a woman in tech kind of powered you into the tech industry. So the next question is, are there any high school or college courses that you would recommend hackers to check out if they're interested in CS or STEM careers?
I could go for that. At least in my university, it's a very theoretical university, so I heard that not too much is applied in the real life, but I heard database systems is very useful, even if you're not doing tech. Like I heard that they use it a lot in the business world, so I'm actually taking that next semester. I heard it's very useful. And also software design, like how to code well, because at the end of the day, if you're coding for a company and your code is disastrous, it's gonna be so hard for the next person to be able to fix that code up. So yeah, and then if we're interviewing, data structures and algorithm is definitely important. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, my university is also very theoretical as well. So, but I do have to say data structures, a lot of the classes that Camilla said are very important. To add as well, if there are any workshops, I know MLH, they have their fellow program as well. I think trying to get your hands dirty and doing projects is a really great way to learn a lot more, especially getting that practical aspect of it too. If there's a course which talks about React or different other tools or programming languages, that might also be useful. So I would suggest kind of joining those boot camps as well, just to have different experiences and learn a lot more.
I also agree with the data structures things. I enjoyed data structures, but I did not enjoy the algorithms stuff with it. But you just got to power through that so you can do the interviews. But another class I would suggest is probably something more fun like web dev. like if you're getting burnt out from CS, web dev is kind of a fun CS related topic that can uplift you because you're going to feel like you know how to code for once. But I do recommend looking into maybe like tech electives if your school has them. But also like boot camps too, they tend to be more fun than college classes.
Okay. Thank you so much for your answers for that. That was really helpful, especially for people who are going into college and in high school at the moment. I guess we can go into audience questions now because we have no other questions to ask. You answered all of them beautifully. But for the first audience question it is, for the projects you uploaded on your resume, were they original solutions for a problem, or were they also common coding exercises like Hangman?
For me, the first project I put on my resume was from my APCS class. So, and it was kind of like a database kind of API thing, but it was very useless and it's not like you don't see it in society. But they did ask me about it in my interview, and I think for that one, they were more interested about how I made it than why I made it. But then I have another project that is like a woman in tech related one. And I think that showcased more of my passion rather than like what I made.
For me, they were both websites. They're like very expanded. Like, there's a lot happening on the websites, but there weren't like applications that like did anything specific. Just a lot of like since a lot of it was like empowering minorities or like learning about things, it was just like for example, like for the Black Lives Matter, we were focusing on the wage gap and how like educating how it's affected on your gender, like race, the field you're in, and also teaching people like more about the issue. And then for the COVID one, it was when COVID was really new. So we wanted to make a platform where people could share the symptoms they had, their experiences, just for people to not feel alone as they're going through COVID. We also had like a cool map that was connected to like real life APIs that, you could just pick a country and it says how many COVID cases they had, which is pretty cool. But they're both like just educative things, I guess.
Yeah, I think my first project that I put was a Unity game that I made in high school. So it was like very interesting. And then I did also put like a couple of my hackathon projects as well on my resume. And then I took a couple like AI classes, and I was really like thinking about kind of concentrating a lot more in AI. So that's like actually my concentration in grad school. So I kind of put in a couple of like my AI projects as well. So it's like a wide range, I would say, but they did like ask me different questions about like some of my projects and stuff. So kind of going back to Serena and Camilla, like companies are just really interested about what projects you put on your resume.
All right, that's really great to hear that you guys have put your hackathon projects on your resume. So like for everyone who's like creating a project during Hydra Hacks, you guys should definitely do that. All right, the next question we got from the audience was, how many internships did you apply to? And during what time of the year did you start applying for a summer internship?
I applied to a ton, let's just say that. Especially so my first internship, freshman year of college. Like, people don't typically like get internships because they don't have as much experience. So I didn't really apply to that many freshman year. I only applied to one. It was like at this power school. They kind of keep track of proposal and stuff. I only applied to that one and I was able to get it, but like I remember sophomore year I applied to a ton. And there's several different ways. Like I applied online, I reached out to people via LinkedIn, I attended different conferences like Grace Hopper and the SWE conference, and so I went to like a lot of their career booths and stuff. It was actually funny. Like I really like Intel had a really big impact of me wanting to go into tech, and so I applied to like there was like a week that I applied to like I think 30 or 40 different internship roles, and like I got like rejection emails every day, and I was like, oh no. But hey, it ended up working. I did get that internship at Intel, so don't give up. So that was like sophomore year, but what I realized is when you have more internships under your belt, a lot more opportunities will come, but you have to like really like make that first like opportunity shown. Like in fact, for my internship at SpaceX, I really wasn't applying. Like the recruiter actually reached out to me and like told me to apply. So like it like sometimes I would highly suggest like for your internships, like start applying around like the August, September timeframe, and then just like keep on trying and stuff, and it'll work out.
For my first year, I probably applied to like over 200. And they were all online, so like I was just spamming my resume everywhere, and I only heard back from like 3 maybe. And that was in February, so I could tell I was one of those last minute applicants that they just wanted to fill those spots in for. But like whatever I can get my freshman year, I'll take. So that's how I got into AT&T. And then for this summer's internship, I applied. I think they opened it relatively early. It was like July. But I started applying there, and then I was also gonna go haywire with my applications. I was just gonna apply everywhere, probably to like 300 this time. But I stopped because I heard back from a good amount of them after my first internship, and I think that very first internship helps with the rest if you're applying to a different company. So yeah, after I heard from Microsoft, I kind of put a pause on most of my applications, or not applications, but I stopped applying to a bunch of random companies. Also because I heard back from a couple other companies for interviews. So once that happened, I got an offer relatively early, so I didn't have to apply to hundreds. So this year I kind of applied to maybe 10, and it was all within July to September.
So I was just very lucky. So I applied for Explore internship. Like that's my first internship I applied for, and I got it. But like throughout the process, I was still applying to like a few others, like maybe like 10, I think. But then I heard back that I got it, and then throughout my internship, I got the return offer. So I didn't really have to apply then, but I still had, I think like everyone was saying, after your first internship, it's a lot easier. So after my first internship, I had like recruiters reaching out to me like privately on LinkedIn, and I'd still apply just to like, which is actually something that my friend told me about. It just helps out just for yourself, like for later interviewing, just practicing your interviewing skills. So I interviewed with a few other companies, but stuck back with Microsoft, obviously. Yeah.
Okay, that's all very cool, and it's so interesting to hear about how you all got your internships. I know I'm super interested in like Microsoft internships. That's very cool. I don't believe we have any other audience questions. Grace, did you get anything?
No, I didn't. And
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Yes, I guess we're done. Thank you to Camilla, Serena, and Medha so much for all of your advice and all of like the questions that you answered. They were so awesome, and we loved hearing about your experiences and all of that. Did you have anything to say before we close off?
I like to just, oh, sorry.
You go for it. You go for it.
I just wanted to say, like, y'all are amazing, and keep in mind, even during your tough times, every person is a girl. They're a go-getter, innovator, risk taker, and leader. So yeah.
That's cute. I don't know if I could one up that, but just wishing everyone good luck on the hackathon or just in general, your tech endeavors and university. Yeah, good luck.
Same, I'll say the same things. You guys are goal bosses. Keep doing what you want to do. And yeah.
All right, thank you.